Assalamu alaikum and welcome to lecture number 4 of the course Corporate Social Responsibility MGT610. Today, before the start of the lecture, I'm just going to give you a very quick recap of the first 3 lectures that we've done so far and the chapter number 1 that we've finished in the first 3 lectures. What we've basically done so far is that we have defined very carefully, defined very specifically what corporate social responsibility means. And while defining what corporate social responsibility is, what we've done is we've also incorporated or we've also studied various different views of various different people as to what did they have to say about corporate social responsibility. And then we sort of criticized or we became a little skeptic and we discussed as to the shortcomings of each view, and then considering all the definitions, all the views, all the different aspects that different people gave, we basically talked about or we basically came up with one final definition of corporate social responsibility, which was simply, if I'm not going to quote your books right now, but which simply stated that yes, corporations should go for profits, yes, corporations should seek profits for shareholders, but at the same time they have a different level of responsibility. At the same time they have a different level of commitment with other stakeholders and with their workers, their families, the local community and the society at large. And then we also stated that there's no prescribed definition of corporate social responsibility. There's no specific, just right definition of corporate social responsibility. But what is important is that organizations, keeping within the framework of corporate social responsibility, find their way and find just the right mix of what CSR is and find just the right mix of corporate social responsibility. So I can't say that XYZ company should do these many activities to be socially responsible, or ABC companies should just do this much to be socially responsible. I'm saying that corporations should make set of policies, set of strategies, set of planning such that they incorporate CSR within that as a long-term strategy, as a long-term ongoing activity, and try to be as helpful and try to be as committed towards all stakeholders. Another very important aspect or another very important thing that we learned in chapter number 1 was that CSR is not a one-time thing. CSR is not a one-time activity. CSR is not charity. CSR is not philanthropy. CSR is an ongoing activity that organizations do. The third very important aspect or the third very important point that we talked about in the first chapter was that we are not advocating that organizations should not go for profit. We are just advocating that yes, profit making is here and social responsibility is here, and both of them should be balanced. And we also said that both these concepts, CSR and profit making, are not opposed to each other. It is not KG win-lose situation hogi. If profit wins, then there's going to be no social responsibility, and if social responsibility wins, then there's going to be no profit making. We are saying that both of them can coexist in an organizations, and corporations should strive or corporations should do their best to make sure that both profit making is there and corporate social responsibility is there. So that's basically the crust of what we did in chapter number 1. Now today in lecture number 4 we're going to start chapter number 2, which is basically about evolution of company and evolution of corporate social responsibility. So what we're going to do is we're going to discuss how have companies or corporations originated and what are the various aspects and characteristics of corporations. And we're going to discuss with reference to corporations what is corporate governance, and then we're going to talk about as to how CSR has evolved or the evolution of corporate social responsibility over the years. Now after studying this chapter, I would like that you would be able to discuss all these points, or you will be able to understand the concept of corporation. You would be able to trace a brief history of corporations. You would be able to understand how modern corporations have come into being or have come into existence. You would be able to provide a brief outline of corporate governance. You would be able to talk intelligently about corporate governance, and you would be able to discuss corporate governance with anybody intelligently, and then you would be able to analyze the importance of corporate social responsibility in governance. So these are the various chapter objectives that we hope that at the end of this chapter number 2 you would be able to get and you will be able to understand. Before I formally begin chapter number 2, since all of you do have a 4 years bachelor's degree in business administration or a related subject, so what I'm going to do in chapter number 2, most of it is what you would have done. But since then the question arises as to why I'm repeating it, only because that I would want all of you to come up to the same level, because all of us have done our graduation from different colleges, our bachelor's degree from different places, and all of us would have different standards. But for this particular course, I would want everybody across the board to come up to one specific level, and that's what this chapter is all going to be about, and especially lecture number 4 is going to be about that. Now, the concept of corporation, or the concept of modern corporation, or the concept of corporation as we know today, has evolved over time. जो आज हम कॉरपोरेशन को देखते हैं, बड़ी कॉरपोरेशंस को, पाकिस्तान टोबैको कंपनी को, लीवर ब्रदर्स को, यूनिलीवर को, प्रॉक्टर एंड गैम्बल को, इंटेल को, माइक्रोसॉफ्ट को, ये हमेशा से कॉरपोरेशंस ऐसे नहीं होती थी. They've evolved over time, right? Now, there's hardly a human activity that does not fall under the shadow of corporations. Today, corporations are extremely powerful. इतनी ज़्यादा powerful हैं कि they do have an impact on every aspect of your life. Me as a human being, I'm not a businessman, I'm a teacher, I'm a faculty member. However, different corporations have influence me as an individual as well. For example, maybe the butter that I eat for breakfast is by a particular corporation, and that is the butter that I like. I'm not going to change brands, and I'll go from shop to shop to shop to find the very same brand. Similarly, a lot of time the makeup that people use or the perfumes that people use, एक ही brand की, एक ही corporation की चीज़. The clothes that people wear, the sweaters that people wear, एक ही चीज़, एक ही aspect. Similarly, maybe the hardware that you're using, the laptop that you're using, people who are fan of Apple will only use Apple. चाहे वो iPad हो, चाहे वो iPhone हो, या वो MacBook हो. They will not change brands for anything. So what I'm trying to say is that when I say that there's hardly a human activity that does not fall under the shadow of corporation, it basically means that whatever I do from the time that I wake up to the time that I go to sleep, I'm using some kind of product or services which has been made by some kind of corporation, be it a big corporation or a small corporation. So that means कि जी मेरी पूरी existence as an individual, मतलब कि I'm not talking about birth or raising myself. I'm basically talking about the things that I'm using, or the things that are around myself, or the things that surround me. Everything is shadowed by corporations, or everything is made by corporations, companies and businesses. So that just shows that why, to you and me today, corporations are important. You take corporations out of the equation, क्या मैं और आप कुछ कर सकते हैं? आज Apple बंद हो जाएगी, what will the Apple users do? आज स्वेटर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग बंद हो जाएगी, एक पर्टिकुलर ब्रांड बंद हो जाएगा, लेट्स से नेस्ले बंद हो जाएगा, what will people do? Where would yogurt come from? Where would the milk come from? And there would be a huge void in my life. So that's what I mean when I say that there's hardly a human activity that does not fall under the shadow of corporation. Now, since we've established the fact very informally that corporations are extremely important for people, we need to have a definition of corporation. Now, how would you define a corporation? Corporation is basically a group of people coming together and that group of people then achieving a particular objective. Now these group of people which are coming together would have different expertise, would have different knowledge base, would have different experiences, and would have a different skill set, and they would all come together, start working in an organization. They would sort of amalgamate with each other, and then they would pursue a particular objective, which in the case of an organization, the objective is simple enough, which is profit making. Now, from the perspective of an economic system, or if you would look at a corporation from an economic perspective, what would that be then? We understand, or whenever we talk of economics, there's one very simple rule, that economics is based on the fact that the resources that we use are scarce. So every resource, चाहे वो natural resource हो, कोई भी resource होगी, वो scarce होगी. And it is because of scarcity of resources that we have to manage them accordingly. Because just assume कि अगर resources scarce नहीं हैं, और अगर resources abundance में हैं, या कभी ख़त्म ना होने वाली हैं, then what will happen is कि फिर तो कोई मसला ही नहीं है. Example, tap water. आप खोले रखें, आप दिन खोलें, आप रात खोलें, आप खोले ही रखें. If there's no scarcity of resources, then that water is never going to go away, or that water is always going to be there. However, since water is scarce, so you start thinking कि अगर मैं खोले रखूँगा, there will come a point in time, and at some future generation, that there will be no water. So what you do? You immediately close the tap and don't use or don't waste water. So there's always competition for scarce resources. And when I say corporation or group of people coming together, they're the ones competing for scarce resources. आप resources को किस तरीके से utilize करेंगे? Because आप resources को utilize करते हुए आप products and services बनाते हैं, then products and services को distribute करते हैं, promote करते हैं, and finally आप profit उसी से के through earn करते हैं. So basically, what people and what organizations and corporations and businesses are doing is they're competing with reference to scarcity of resources. Now, human creates process, captures resources, and make products and then create exchange. That is what I've just explained to you right now. That what do ये तो समझ में आया कि with reference to economics that there is scarcity of resources. Now, with reference to scarcity of resources, इस particular aspect में आप individual humans को डालें या organizations को डालें या individuals को डालें, because individuals are the ones जो कि organizations को run or manage करती हैं. Now humans are the ones who are going to create processes. Process could be those functional areas that we talked about in the first chapter, your marketing, your sales, your finance, your production, your operation. That is what, or marketing research, that is what your process are. Now, through the process, what the humans are doing is they're capturing those scarce resources, and they're getting those scarce resources in the form of raw material. And उस raw material को आप एक पूरा process में डालकर you convert that raw material into products and goods and services, and then you bring them in the market so that an exchange activity can occur whereby the buyers and the sellers are going to come together in the market. The buyer is going to buy the product at a particular price, and the seller is going to sell the product at a particular price, and finally if both parties agree, an exchange will occur. Now this entire system of processing, capturing, creating, and then exchanging, one person cannot do it. अगर मैं कहूँ कि जी मैंने अकेले ने ये सारा system चलाना है, processing से लेकर exchange activity तक, I just can't, because हर link पे, चाहे वो process हो, चाहे वो capturing हो, चाहे वो creating हो, चाहे वो exchange हो, इतनी multiple activities involved होती हैं that one person is just unable to do it. So when one person cannot do it, or when it is not possible for one person to do it, then different people come together and they form a team, or they form a group with different skills, and financial resources is formed. So what happens is that since you need to complete that entire system from process to exchange, and we've decided that one person cannot do it, different people having different skills are going to come up. Some people would be good in engineering, some people would be good in finance, some people would be good in marketing, some people would be good in dealing with people, and all of these people are going to come together and form and then they would come together and do that entire process and capture resources and create products and services. And इसके अलावा simultaneously आपको financial resources भी चाहिए होंगे. And that is how your corporation is going to be formed, or that is how your corporation is going to be made. So that means कि हमने ये decide किया कि एक बंदा या एक individual जो है वो ये पूरा system नहीं चला सकता, so you would need more people. And once that was decided, then more people came and a group or a team was formed, and that team, that group had different skills, different knowledge, different experiences, plus simultaneously they also had financial resources and this different this group of people having different skills, they came together, and that is how your corporation was formed. So that is generally how, अगर मैं आपको describe करूँ या आपको explain करूँ कि corporations क्यों बनी या why is there a need for having a corporation, that is why, because इतना complex procedure है that one person cannot do it, and since one cannot do it, you need a group of people coming together to accomplish creation of resources. Now, having said that, corporations are not without risk. Now, for example, when we say कि group of people, different group of people having different skills are going to come together, then maybe the risk is that differences in people or those different people having different skills might not get along with each other. Conflict hoga, they're going to be disagreements or masla padega. Another risk is that maybe whatever you create is not needed by the market, or there are no consumers and there are no customers who want the products that you're making. So whenever we talk of corporation, the important thing is that corporation is not without its risk. It's extremely risky to become an entrepreneur. It's extremely risky to start a business, and it's extremely risky to form a corporation. And because you're taking risk, because you're opening up a corporation, the economic corporation then works for profit, because I'm sure that you've heard the term, the higher the risk, the higher the profit, because आप जितना ज़्यादा risk assume करते हैं या आप जितना ज़्यादा risk ले लेते हैं, the chances or the probability that you will get more profit automatically increases. So that means कि जो हमने पूरी चीज़ें from this point to this point पढ़ी, all of these steps, all of these activities, all of these things are being done so that the economic corporation can earn profit. You can ask me this question at this point in time, is कि जी corporation तो समझ में आता है, but what do you mean by economic corporation? Economic corporation is basically that corporation which is going to work, or which is going to do things, or which is going to do activities for profit. So that means that this entire process that we've discussed so far is basically about an economic corporation whose basic objective is to earn profit. Now, in this particular slide, what we understand now what corporation is, right? So what we need to do now is that we need to just go back a little bit in history and see that how have corporations evolved with time. Now, सबसे पहली corporation किस type की थी, या what was the earliest corporation that people could come up with or think of? Now, the earliest corporations were religious corporations, जो कि religion को फैलाने के लिए या religion को preach करने के लिए बनाई गई थी, and they were called as confraternities, right? So confraternities, or a confraternity, was basically a religious association whose members were committed to certain rules and guidelines to promote religious life. Now, this religious association has been there from Middle Ages to even today, whereby a group of people come together, and this group of people is basically can be called a religious association or a confraternity, and this religious association is committed to certain rules and is committed to certain guidelines and is committed to certain regulations, and within that framework of rules, regulations and guidelines, what they're doing is they're promoting religious life. They're preaching to people as to what religion can do and why should you follow religion and how can you follow religion, and they sort of literally make a following religious life easier. So that is one of the first form of corporation, and we can see now that it has been there for ages and for generations. Now, these religious associations basically played a very significant role in religious and social life. बहुत ज़्यादा इन लोगों ने in religious associations ने काम किया for religion, yes, obviously, because उनका primary objective ही religion को promote करना था, and they also worked for betterment of the social life of people. Now, क्वेश्चन के जी अगर आप बेटरमेंट की बात करते हैं या रिलीजन को फैलाने की बात करते हैं तो ऑब्वियसली यू वुड रिक्वायर मनी फॉर दैट. नाउ वेयर डिड द मनी कम from for these religious association? The money was raised through banquets and feasts. Now these confraternities basically arranged different banquets, arranged different dinners. Banquets is basically group of people coming together and having food, and they arranged feasts. And जो पैसा in feasts and in banquets से raise होता था या कमाया जाता था, that was basically used to provide food and medical care to people, and that is how they worked for the through provision of food and through provision of medical care, they basically worked for the betterment of social life. However, this activity of these religious association was not organized. It was not managed well. Even today, when we talk of religious association, even when we talk about Pakistan, और अगर आप यहाँ पर भी religious associations की बात करें, उनमें organizations issues होते हैं. They might not be ideally managed. Now, मैं किससे comparison कर रही हूँ? Maybe I'm talking of a religious association as compared to a multinational company. If you just would see them or judge them, then maybe the multinational company would have a much more organized system of doing things as compared to that religious association. So whatever they used to do even then or even now, those activities were not organized. They were basically unorganized. Later on, there was controversy as to who should control philanthropy, state, municipality, or confraternities or other institutions. Even then, what we're doing is when we're studying as to how corporations have evolved, हम आहिस्ता आहिस्ता आगे चले जा रहे हैं. बिल्कुल इनिशियल में corporations का जो evolve होना शुरू हुआ, evolution के बिल्कुल first phase में आपकी religious association काम करती जा रही थी, होता जा रहा था. उसके साथ साथ there were other group of people जो कि आके that other group of people used to come together and used to start working for a particular objective or for a particular goal. Now, confusion कहाँ थी, चाहे वो religious association हो या कोई और association हो. The problem was कि जी जो philanthropy है उसको कौन control करेगा? Would it be the state? Would it be the municipality? Or would it be the religious associations? Or there would be other institutions? ये confusion अगर आप अभी देखें ये आजकल भी होती है क्योंकि philanthropy is going to involve money, and whenever money is involved, then everybody starts asking question कि जी who is the controlling authority? तो वो confusion even early days में भी थी corporation के. Now, 16th to 18th centuries reflected conflicting policies. From the 16th century to the 18th century, जो आपकी policies, जो regulations, जो rules बनते थे, वो इतने conflicting थे that there was no clear-cut answer as to who should do what, or who would control charity, or who would control philanthropy, और कितना हमने spend करना है. There was no clear framework for this particular type of work during the 16th, 17th and the 18th century. Later on, after the 18th century, there was establishment of merchant guilds. Now, इस point in time पर अगर आप ये question करें कि guilds का क्या मतलब है? Guilds is basically a group of people coming together, and that group of people would have similarities among them. So maybe they would have known one particular skill. For example, जितने भी carpenters होंगे, they're going to come together and they're going to form a carpenters guild, whereby everybody who's going to be a member of that carpenters guild will know carpentry in some way or the other. So guild is basically when a group of people come together, or they form a particular group based on commonality of a particular skill or particular knowledge. So when I say that later on there was establishment of merchants guild, that basically means that everybody who was involved in being a merchant, or he or she was a merchant, was trading something or exchanging something or was involved in barter system, they all came together and they formed an association. Later on, you had more organized concepts of corporation with charter companies. Merchant guilds बने, साल आगे बढ़ते रहे, सालों से centuries से generations, and later on आपका पूरा structure जो था वो ज़्यादा formalize हो गया, ज़्यादा systematic हो गया, and the concept of corporation with respect to charter companies came into being, whereby आप under a charter आप corporations को register कराते थे. Charter क्या था? Charter is just that black and white thing which basically tells as to why the organization or the corporation was formed and what is the organization supposed to do in order to achieve a particular objective. So it basically tells कि जी organization किन rules and regulations के through जो है वो आगे चलेगी और आगे progress करेगी. And when we say कि जी charter companies की formation हुई थी, the very first charter company which was formed in Indo-Pakistan or India and Pakistan, or the subcontinent as it was called before, was English East India Company. So I'm not going to go into history. I'm sure that the name of East India Company rings lots of bells in your mind, because Pakistan studies के अगर हम बात करें, this is one of the first and the foremost thing which comes into mind कि जो आपके Britishers थे वो subcontinent में आए कैसे? Through the East India Company, which was involved in exchange and which was involved in trading and which was basically merchants के through या mercenaries के through या merchants के through आपके सारे के सारे लोग जो थे ये इंडिया या subcontinent में आए थे. So that is basically through. We can see that आपकी जब हम seeds of early corporations की बात करते हैं, तो they started with religious associations and then we moved on, and even when you had religious associations and guilds, even then there was a question as to who would control philanthropy, किसके पास control है चीज़ों का. These religious associations were further they expanded, and guilds of various types also were formed, and they also came into being in addition to the religious association. And later on, finally, you had the modern form of the corporation, whereby there was a charter to companies, and the companies had to have a charter, or aapki charter companies form. And the very first charter companies that we can think of in the subcontinent was the English East India Company. So that is how your corporations have evolved with time, from just religious associations to a charter company that we see today. Now, when we talk of modern companies, companies that exist in 2012, or companies that exist today, उसकी भी एक development है, या उसका भी एक पूरा process है जिसके through वो लोग गुज़रे हैं. Now, the very first thing is that every firm had a single owner or a small number of owners. That means that when we talk of corporations, they just एकदम से the very first business that was initiated was not of a corporation, was not of a charter company. जिस बंदे ने सबसे पहले business किया वो charter company के through या corporation के through नहीं किया. Early businesses or early firms generally had a single owner, just one owner, or a small number of owners. And when we discussed, remember when we were doing forms of business in chapter number 1, we discussed कि जी form of business में आपका sole proprietorship होता है, partnership होता है, और corporation होता है, या joint stock companies होता है. And we said that proprietorship is one whereby you have one owner, or a small business having one owner. So the early firms or the early businesses were basically sole proprietorship, whereby you had a single owner or a small number of owners. And then these small firms having single owners had unlimited liability. Again, do you know, I'm sure that you know what unlimited liability is. Okay, do you want me to repeat it? Okay, let's do it one more time. Unlimited liability is when you can lose more than what you have invested in your business. For example, a very simplistic example could be that you've invested 100 rupees in your business, and after 6 months you find out, okay, this business is not working and I don't want to sort of continue with this business. When you wind up your business, you find out that you owe 200 rupees to different kind of people around you. Now, what do? आपने तो सिर्फ 100 रुपीज़ इन्वेस्ट किए थे और आपकी लाइबिलिटीज़ जो हैं वो 200 हैं. Now this difference of 100, what would you do? You would have to pay it from your very own pocket. Either आपको अपना कोई एसेट बेचना पड़ेगा, या कोई अपनी घड़ी बेचनी पड़ेगी, या अपना मोबाइल फ़ोन बेचना पड़ेगा, whatever, but you will have to sell a few of your assets to pay those liabilities back. Now this is the concept of unlimited liabilities, whereby you just invested 100, but you ended up losing 200. So your loss was more than your investment, and that is when that happens, that is what we call as unlimited liability. Now, So we sort of clear कि जी जो आपकी early firms थी वो small firms थी, single owner firms थी जिसमें unlimited liability होती थी. Now to counter this risk, legislation was made to make the corporate entity and the owner separate. Now to counter the risk of unlimited liability so that the owner would not be liable for the losses of a business or for the losses of a corporation, legislation rules were made so that the corporate entity or the business or the corporation was made a separate entity than the owner. So that means that if I would start a business today, I would not be like this with the business. The business is going to be here and I'm going to be here. The business is going to be a separate entity and I am going to be a separate entity. My business and myself will not be fused together. So that is what जो अब हम modern corporations की बात करते हैं उसमें ये बहुत important aspect होता है that the owner and the corporations or the owner and the corporation are two separate or different entities. This laid the foundation of a corporation. When we said that owners and the corporations are two different entities, this laid the foundation for corporation. And then we started talking about shares, and then we started talking about dividends. Now, shares are basically that piece of paper that if you buy a share, you would become the owner of a particular company or a corporation. So share is basically your proof of ownership of a company. And when you have a share, then automatically you would get dividend as well. Now, dividend is basically the profit that your company would get through its operation, and then that profit would be shared with all the shareholders or everybody who's going to have a share of the company. So that is what we call as dividend. And again, जब हम dividend की बात करते हैं, then you would know कि जी common stockholder क्या होता है, preferred stockholder क्या होता है, और किसको किस time पर dividend मिलता है. But इस time पर we can safely say that every shareholder of the company gets a dividend. However, जब profit ऊपर नीचे हो रहा होता है तो आपका dividend भी ऊपर नीचे हो रहा होता है, और अगर बहुत बुरे times हों तो ये भी हो सकता है कि आपको dividend ना मिले या आपको reduced dividend मिले, but then that dividend starts accumulating and whenever a good time comes आपको वो accumulated dividend मिल रहा होता है. So जब भी हम corporations की बात करेंगे तो फिर हम shares की भी बात करेंगे और dividends की भी बात करेंगे. Now, at this point in time, what we have decided is कि जो आपकी corporations हैं उसमें भी जो आपके initial owners होते हैं वो proprietors होते हैं, या proprietor can be that person जिसने initiate किया corporation को या जिसने initially business start किया. Now generally speaking, a proprietor is going to have more information than the outside shareholder. Why? Because the proprietor or the owner of the company or the person who is managing the affairs of the corporation is going to be inside the organization, and the shareholders are going to be outside the organization. That automatically means, logically talking, that the proprietor will have more information as compared to the shareholder who will be outside the organization and who will have lesser information. Now, ये भी एक problem थी, because the proprietor is the owner as well as the shareholder who is also the owner. तो फिर हम ये distinction क्यों करेंगे जी proprietor को ज़्यादा information मिले और shareholder को कम information मिले? Now that meant that laws had to be made to ensure equal sharing of information. That means that legislation had to be made to ensure that both parties, the proprietor and the shareholders, which are external to the company, get equal amount of information in order for effective decision making. Now again, इस point in time पर हम you need to understand कि हम आपको generally modern corporations के characteristics बता रहे हैं. So जब हम shares की बात करते हैं, जो कि हम पहले भी कर चुके हैं, just a recap that shares are going to be your liquid assets, right? Why? Because आप shares को multiple चीज़ों के लिए अगर आपके पास for example capital नहीं है, आपके पास पैसा नहीं है, and you need to raise money, what you can do is you can issue shares and get money. Similarly, अगर आपके पास पैसा नहीं है, so what you can do is you can pledge your shares to a bank or a financial institution and get a loan against them. So आप ये काम कर सकते हैं. Plus shares को use करते हुए आप diversification भी कर सकते हैं. For example, if I am a shareholder and I can buy shares of A company, I can buy shares of B company, and I can buy shares of C company as well. Now, why am I buying shares of 3 different companies? Just because I'm diversifying my risk. If A company goes down, that means that I will have profit coming from B as well as C. Similarly, if C goes down, I'll still have money coming from B. And if B goes down, maybe A and C would have sort of would have improved their operations and would have started being profitable companies, and I would start getting dividends from A and from C. So through diversification of portfolio, through buying shares of multiple or different types of companies operating in different types of industries and sectors, what I'm doing is I am not placing my eggs in one basket only. I am placing my eggs in 2-3 different baskets, as a result of which if one basket falls, the eggs in that baskets are going to be broken, but then my other eggs in other baskets are going to be safe. So that is again one of the characteristics of corporations and shares and shareholders. Now, जब हम बात करते हैं कॉर्पोरेशन की, then question आता है कि ownership का, कि who is the real owner of the corporation, and the second question that comes up is of corporate governance. Now, corporate governance, ownership की अगर हम बात करें, then the question is कि जी owner कौन है? Is it the shareholder or is it the people who initiated the business? Then अगर हम ये decide कर लेते हैं, then question is किसको कितनी information मिलनी चाहिए, किसको कितनी authority मिलनी चाहिए, कि कौन कितना accountable है, किसकी क्या responsibility है. So these are the questions that you ask yourself with reference to a corporation or the ownership of a corporation. The second question that arises is of corporate governance. Now, what is corporate governance? Laws, codes, structures and processes put in place to run a company. So every law, every code, every structure, every process which is just there in the corporation, so that every functional area of a corporation works the way that it should be, so that the ultimate objective of profit making should be achieved, is what corporate governance is. So corporate governance is a very huge, wide, बहुत बड़ा area है जिसके बारे में हम बात करेंगे इस chapter में और आगे जाकर भी बात करेंगे. So it's going to encompass everything that the organizations or companies do in order so that they can run their operations. Now, with reference to corporate governance, you need to understand that आपका जो ये corporate governance क्यों ज़रूरी है, ये हमारे लिए इसको पढ़ना क्यों ज़रूरी है, is that proprietor becomes the first director of the company, because obviously proprietor ने ही business शुरू किया. पहले वो small business था, फिर आहिस्ता आहिस्ता वो बड़ा होता गया और अब आपने उसको corporation बना दिया. So जो proprietor होता है वो कहीं नहीं जाता, वो business में ही रहता है, उसी ने business start किया, वो आपकी company का first director होता है. Now, as shareholders grow, they are also become owners as well, because obviously when you start buying shares, XYZ, ABC people who are outside the company starts buying share of the company, they're basically owners of the company, right? Now, once they become owners of the company, that means that now they can share profits with the proprietor. आपका जो shareholder है और जो आपका proprietor है, वो profit sharing करेगा based on whatever the company earns. Similarly, corporate governance की जब बात करेंगे तो उसमें succession planning भी आएगी कि जी डायरेक्टर्स इतने हैं, ये हैं, अगर एक डायरेक्टर इस टाइम पर रिटायर होगा तो इस डायरेक्टर की जगह कौन सा बंदा लेगा. या आप ये देखते हो कि जी कौन सी इंपॉर्टेंट पोजीशंस है, उन इंपॉर्टेंट पोजीशंस पर कौन से लोग बैठ रहे हैं, और वो लोग जो उन इंपॉर्टेंट पोजीशंस पर बैठे हैं वो उन पोजीशंस पर कितने ड्यूरेशन के लिए बैठेंगे, so that you would have another person ready and prepared that whenever this director leaves or resigns or sort of completes his or her tenure, the other person is ready to take over his seat. Now, why do you want good succession planning? You just want good succession planning because you do not want कि जी आपकी corporation में instability आए. Because if a director position is vacant, that means कि आपकी planning, आपकी strategy making, आपकी जो objective making है या goal setting है, वो सबका सब effect होगा. So अगर आपकी succession planning बहुत अच्छी होती है तो automatically आपका system बहुत smoothly run करता है. Then again, rules and regulations that will result in a win-win situation for the owner, management and the community. So this particular point of ours, this one, basically summarizes what corporate governance is. Corporate governance would then be all rules, all regulations that will result in a win-win situation. For the owners, for the management and the community. And at this point in time, I'm going to go a little off track, so you need to be with me, that this is all why corporate governance is important, because हमने even in the second chapter we are not saying कि we are against profit making. हम ये नहीं कह रहे कि corporations को profit नहीं कमाना चाहिए, हम कह रहे हैं कि corporations के लिए win-win situation हो सकती है, जहां पर rules and regulations के अंदर रहते हुए या rules and regulations के framework में रहते हुए एक win-win situation create हो सकती है, जहां पर owners भी खुश हो, जहां पर management भी खुश हो और community भी खुश हो. जब हम owners की बात करते हैं तो automatically उसमें आपका shareholders भी उसमें include होते हैं. So corporate governance is basically, it's a big concept which is going to include corporate social responsibility within itself, because it is all about following rules and regulations so that everybody, all stakeholders benefit from the corporation. Now, this process of restraining and control exerted by the company and the government related to concept of corporate governance. So that means कि जो हम कहते हैं कि जो a company has to remain within the rules and the regulations. Now, the rules and the regulations जो होते हैं वो multiple types के होते हैं. You need to understand that here. Now, rules and regulations can be exerted by the company internally. वो rules and regulations जो कि company ने खुद बनाए हों so that the rules and regulation controls the operation of the company. Similarly, there are certain rules and regulations that the government has made for corporations. Now, the government is going to be outside the corporation, right? So, आपके rules and regulations दो type के होते हैं और दो type की parties बनाती हैं. एक company which is internal and एक government which is external. So that means that the process of corporate governance is all about restraining and control exerted by the internal company and external government, so that आप उस framework में रहते हुए अपने stakeholders के लिए, अपने community के लिए, अपने management के लिए और अपने owners के लिए ऐसे काम करें कि आपकी company जो है वो एक win-win situation all parties के लिए create करे. So that's what corporate governance is. So just simply stating, corporate governance is going to, जो हमारा subject है corporate social responsibility, corporate governance is going to include corporate social responsibility within it. So it's going to be corporate social responsibility and many other concepts which are included in corporate governance. The next thing is the incorporation of a company. आप company को कैसे form करते हैं. Now, a corporation comes into existence under a law. Even Pakistan में भी अगर आपको corporation या joint stock company बनानी है, you just can't form it like a sole proprietor. You need to go to the Security and Exchange Commission, get all the paperwork done, and then you can form a corporation. Now, again, a corporation is going to be an artificial person. That means that a corporation cannot think on its own and it cannot make decisions on its own. हमने पिछली slide में ये तो बोला कि जी corporation and owners are two separate entities. But having said that, we are also saying now that corporation is an artificial person. An artificial person is basically that person जो कि खुद से सोच नहीं सकता और खुद से decision making नहीं कर सकता. Then the question arises कि अच्छा फिर कौन करेगा corporation के behalf for decision making? That is where your management and your directors come into the picture. Now, corporation is an artificial person, but it is legally accountable and answerable. And that is why when we talk about corporations, we can say that they can be sued and they can sue other people as well. So that means कि अगर मैं किसी corporation की shareholder हूँ या मेरे shares हैं किसी corporation में और मेरी corporation को XYZ sue करता है, तो XYZ ने मेरी कॉर्पोरेशन को सू किया है, उसने सारा को सू नहीं किया. सो दैट इज व्हाट वी मैनी मीन कि जी कॉर्पोरेशन जो है वो लीगली अकाउंटेबल है और लीगली आंसरेबल है. एंड व्हेन आई से कॉर्पोरेशन आंसरेबल है और अकाउंटेबल है, दैट मीन्स ओनली द कॉर्पोरेशन एंड नॉट द ओनर्स एंड नॉट द शेयर होल्डर्स. सो दैट मीन्स दैट शेयर होल्डर्स can question the activities of a corporation. Now, why is that necessary? Because again, shareholders, yes, they're the owners, but then you need to also see that shareholders are geographically dispersed. हर shareholder, for example, अगर मैं इस्लामाबाद स्टॉक एक्सचेंज में अपनी कंपनी को रजिस्टर करती हूँ या अपनी कंपनी को डालती हूँ, then what will happen is that my shareholders or the shareholders of my company are not necessarily in Islamabad. They can be in Karachi, they can be in Hyderabad, they can be in Khanpur, they could be in Khairpur, they could be in Quetta, they could be in Mardan, they could be anywhere in Pakistan. Now, when that happens, then इसका मतलब है कि मैं सब shareholders को, क्योंकि shareholders तो owners हैं, असूली तौर पर या लॉजिकली तौर पर shareholders को ही होना चाहिए जो कि डिसीजन मेकिंग करे, क्योंकि वो उनकी कंपनी है। लेकिन सिंस आपके शेयर होल्डर्स इतना बड़े जोग्राफिकल एरिया में डिस्पर्स्ड होते हैं, दैट इट बिकम्स एक्सट्रीमली डिफिकल्ट कि आप उन सबको एक फोरम में लेकर आए, एक प्लेटफॉर्म पे लेकर आए ताकि वो डिसीजन मेकिंग करें। प्रॉब्लम नंबर 1। प्रॉब्लम नंबर 2 ये है कि जब इतने सारे लोग एक जगह पर आकर और या एक जगह पर आएंगे डिसीजन मेकिंग के लिए, देन व्हाट इज गोइंग टू बी द प्रॉब्लम? द प्रॉब्लम इज गोइंग टू बी दैट ऑल ऑफ देम वुड नॉट एग्री, एंड इवन इफ दे वांट टू एग्री ऑन वन थिंग, इट्स गोइंग टू टेक देम सो मच ऑफ टाइम ताकि वो एग्री करें। क्या मेरे पास इतना टाइम है? नहीं, मेरे पास उतना टाइम नहीं है। So what do the shareholders do is they appoint directors. They have a board of directors जिनको shareholders ही select करते हैं, and they become members or those individuals that the shareholders select, those individuals become the member of the board, and then it is the member or it is the board of directors which is basically looking after the affairs of the corporations. And when I say that shareholders can question the activities of corporation, that means that the shareholders can question the board कि जी आपने क्या काम किया, क्यों काम किया, कैसे काम किया और किस लिए काम किया। Because जो shareholders होते हैं they are the owners, and अपने behalf पर वो directors बनाते हैं या board of directors बनाते हैं ताकि board of directors जो हैं वो उनके shareholders के behalf पर काम कर सकें, and then that board is answerable to the shareholders. That is why when we say that shareholders can question the activities of corporation, they can, because there's a separate set of people who is managing the corporation. Shareholders does not necessarily manage the corporation, but it is basically the board of directors जो कि आपकी corporation को manage करता है. Now that if you've understood this concept, then that means that shareholders are not agents, they are legal members. That means shareholders agents नहीं हैं, वो basically owners हैं कंपनी के, वो primary या legal members हैं organization के, वो agent नहीं है। agent कौन होता है? agent is basically a person who works on behalf of somebody else. That means कि जो आपके board of directors हैं वो agent हैं, लेकिन आपका shareholder जो है वो legal member है और agent नहीं है। Similarly, as I said earlier as well, that shareholders ही होते हैं जो कि आपके board of directors के या directors की selection जो है वो भी आपके shareholders ही करते हैं। Now, corporations have economic powers which can compete with modern state. Now, this is a very interesting point. I don't know if you've talked about it, discussed it before as well. हम पहले ये बात कर चुके हैं कि corporations के पास बहुत ज़्यादा economic powers होती हैं. Now, economic powers can be in multiple ways. Just imagine these big, huge multinationals which are operating in so many companies. Can you imagine the number of human resource they employ? Can you imagine the number or the amount of profits that they have? Billions of dollars. And can you imagine कि वो कितना इन्वेस्टमेंट अपने बिजनेसेस में करती हैं, या उनके बिजनेसेस का स्कोप क्या है, या उनके बिजनेसेस कितने बड़े हैं और कितने डाइवर्सिफाइड हैं और कितने एक्सपैंडेड हैं और कितनी जगहों पर है। Now, because of these resources that these corporations have, these organizations or these corporations are extremely powerful corporations, और वो इतनी powerful हो जाती हैं that they can any day, any time compete with modern states. Modern state could be a country, as maybe a country that I'm talking about. So कुछ ऐसी कंपनीज अभी भी एग्जिस्ट करती हैं जो इतनी पावरफुल हैं कि उनकी पावर और एक मॉडर्न स्टेट की पावर या एक रिलेटिवली स्मॉलर कंट्री की पावर्स इक्वल हो सकती हैं. दैट मीन्स दैट नाउ व्हाट वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट इज इकोनॉमिक पावर that corporations have versus political power that the state has or that the government has. And this economic power and this political power, or the corporations and the state, are almost equal, because itni power hoti hai corporations ke paas that they are influencing regulations, they are influencing formations of laws, they are influencing formation of regulations, they are influencing how the government can take decisions, they are influencing as to what the government should do and should not do, they are influencing कि कौन सी, for example, import duties होनी चाहिए ना नहीं होनी चाहिए, quota system को influence करती हैं. So what happens is कि जी आपकी economic power इतनी strong हो जाती है through these corporations that it starts influencing the political power of the states, and generally a lot of time these states, what they do is then that they listen to corporations. Another aspect of this can be that बहुत सारी countries में, developed countries में, corporations pay huge amount of monies to politicians, and that's legal, that's not illegal by the way, these corporations pay huge amount of money and they call it donations, and they give these donations in billions and millions to politicians' election campaign. Now question कि जी कॉर्पोरेशन का काम तो प्रॉफिट मेकिंग है, कॉर्पोरेशन का काम तो शेयर होल्डर्स का इंटरेस्ट सेफ गार्ड करना है, तो फिर क्वेश्चन ये राइज होता है कि जी फिर वो इतने सारा पैसे डोनेशन में क्यों देती हैं, एंड दैट टू फॉर इलेक्शन कैंपेन. Why do you think they do that? They do that because let's say if somebody is giving donations to me and I am a politician and they're giving donations for my election campaign, and if tomorrow I'm going to win my election, then what am I going to do? Am I going to change sides and say, I don't know you, I don't know how much money you've given me? No. With respect to the money that was given as donation for my election campaign, I am going to favor that corporation. I am going to do my utmost while remaining within rules and regulations to benefit that corporation. I would try to make rules, I would try to make legislations, I would try to have guidelines which is going to benefit that corporation which helped me win my elections through the donations that that corporation gave for my election campaign. So that is how your corporations affect politicians, or that is how your corporations affect politics. Now, don't get confused by my example, because and don't even think that this is illegal, because this is the type of thing that happens in American elections, and that's not illegal because वो within their legal boundaries काम करते हैं. तो president होता है वो within his legal boundaries rules and regulation pass करता है. ये नहीं करता कि जी कोई ऐसी चीज जो कि नहीं होनी चाहिए वो उसको rule बना देता है या legislation pass कर देता है. वो boundaries में रहकर legislation pass करता है. लेकिन corporations को क्या फायदा होता है कि अगर किसी legislation ने 10 साल लेने हैं approve होने में, तो because of favorable responses from various people that have benefited from the corporation donation, आपका bill या आपकी legislation बहुत जल्दी clear होती जाती है, and it becomes a law, and it becomes a regulation, and it becomes a rule, और जल्दी वो pass हो जाती है. So that is what we say when we talk about कि जी economic power versus political power क्या होती है, या corporations की power versus state की power क्या होती है, या corporations आपकी modern state को या simply state को या different countries को या different governments को कैसे positively or negatively affect कर सकते हैं. And being the optimistic I am, I've just given you the positive side of corporations' influence over state. There can be, and you can find examples of negative influence of corporations on state. So the influence can work both ways. It could be positive influence as well as it could be negative influence as well. Now, to rein in economic power of these corporations, because you've just decided and we've sort of reached an agreement that corporations do have very large economic powers. इस economic power को control में रखने के लिए या काबू में रखने के लिए आप corporate governance के concept को use करते हैं. And corporate governance में फिर ये भी include होता है कि आप corporations को कैसे control करेंगे. एक way control करने का ये है through different rules and regulations. Everybody and anybody cannot form a corporation. अब वो corporation बनानी है, आपको मेमोरेंडम ऑफ एसोसिएशन चाहिए होगा, आपको आर्टिकल ऑफ एसोसिएशन चाहिए होगा, आपको डायरेक्टर्स के बारे में डिटेल्स देनी होगी, आपको साइनिंग अथॉरिटी के बारे में डिटेल्स देनी होगी, आपको ये बताना होगा कि आप क्या बिजनेस कर रहे हैं. फिर सब चीज़ें अप्रूव हो जाएंगी, सब पेपर वर्क हो जाएगा, फिर आपको सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ कमेंसमेंट ऑफ बिजनेस मिलेगा, फिर आप जाकर अपना बिजनेस कर सकेंगे. सो जितनी भी ये लीगैलिटीज़ हैं इन स्टार्टिंग अ कॉर्पोरेशन, जितनी भी ये लीगल डॉक्यूमेंट्स हैं विच आर नेसेसरी फॉर इनिशिएटिंग अ कॉर्पोरेशन, बेसिकली व्हाट दे डू इज, या उनका पर्पस क्या होता है, उनका बेसिक पर्पस यही होता है कि वो कंपनी को या कॉर्पोरेशन को कंट्रोल में रखती हैं कि वो अपनी बाउंड्री से एक्सीड ना करे, कि वो अपनी डोमेन से एक्सीड ना करे. बिकॉज कॉर्पोरेशन के पास ये या कॉर्पोरेशन की ये टेंडेंसी होती है कि अगर आप उसको बिल्कुल फ्री छोड़ देंगे या उसको कोई रूल या कोई रेगुलेशन उसको कंट्रोल नहीं करेगा, then the corporations would have the tendency of going overboard. They would have the tendency of becoming so powerful that then nobody will be able to rein them in. So through these rules and regulations, through corporate governance, through these guidelines, what you're doing is you're ensuring कि corporation जो है वो अपने डोमेन में रहे और अपना काम करे. एंड देन अगेन एक बात यहाँ पर ये भी जरूर याद रखिए कि कॉर्पोरेशन और गवर्नमेंट्स दो डिफरेंट ऑब्जेक्टिव पर चल रही हैं. गवर्नमेंट का प्राइमरी ऑब्जेक्टिव ये होगा कि इतनी ज्यादा रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस हों ताकि वो कॉरपोरेशंस को कंट्रोल कर सके। क्यों कंट्रोल करना चाहिए? बिकॉज इतनी पावरफुल एंटिटी को अगर आपकी गवर्नमेंट्स कंट्रोल कर रहे हो तो जस्ट इमेजिन दैट व्हाट कैन द गवर्नमेंट डू। ऑन द अदर हैंड कॉरपोरेशंस का ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या होगा कि वो ये कोशिश करेंगे कि गवर्नमेंट या तो फ्रेंडली रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस बनाए या मिनिमम या नहीं रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस ना बनाए, बिकॉज जितने कम रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस होंगे उतना फ्रीली कॉरपोरेशंस काम कर सकेंगी। अच्छा, काम कैसा करेगी? इट कुड बी एथिकल, इट कुड बी राइट, इट कुड बी अनएथिकल एंड इट कुड बी रॉन्ग वर्क एज वेल, बट वट एवर द वर्क इज, जितनी कम रेगुलेशंस होंगी उतना बेहतर कॉरपोरेशन काम करेगी, उतना ज्यादा प्रॉफिटेबल कॉरपोरेशन होगी। So that means that the corporation and the government would have two different conflicting views, and there's a tug of war going on between these two parties. Corporation एक तरफ खींच रही है, government दूसरी तरफ खींच रही है. Where do we stand? And that is where corporate governance comes. जी रेफरी बन जाता है कि जी ये rules हैं, ये regulations हैं, ये right rules हैं, ये right regulations हैं जो कि जरूरी हैं corporations के लिए, ताकि कॉर्पोरेशंस रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस के अंदर रहते हुए प्रॉफिटेबली काम करें, अपनी कम्युनिटीज को हेल्प करें, अपने शेयर होल्डर्स को हेल्प करें, अपने स्टेक होल्डर्स इन जनरल को हेल्प करें। एंड सॉर्ट ऑफ थ्रू कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस आपका बैलेंसिंग एक्ट होता है। आप एक पार्टी को बहुत ज्यादा पावर नहीं देते और आप दूसरी पार्टी को भी बहुत ज्यादा पावर नहीं देते। आप रेफरी का या कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस के जो कॉन्सेप्ट्स हैं वो बेसिकली आपको कंट्रोल में रखते हैं। दे डोंट मेक यू एक्सट्रीमिस्ट, नाइदर दिस एंड नॉट दैट, एंड यू स्टे इन द मिडल एंड यू डू व्हाट यू हैव टू डू। Now, next is governance and management of companies. Now, corporate governance is not an abstract goal. ये तो हमें अब तक पता चल गया है कि जी हम एब्स्ट्रैक्ट में बात नहीं करें, ऐसी चीज नहीं है जो कि हमें समझ में नहीं आती हो, हमारे सर के ऊपर से गुजर जाती हो, बहुत अनक्लियर चीज हो। We're very clear of what corporate governance is. It's rules, regulations which would guide a company to do what it's doing or to operate in a business environment, right? Now, it serves corporate purposes by providing a structure within which stockholders, directors, and management can pursue most effectively the objectives of the corporation. So corporate governance is basically, it provides a purpose. Through corporate governance आप single focus के साथ corporations अपने objectives को meet कर सकती हैं, अपने goals को reach कर सकती हैं, and the basic purpose of corporate governance is basically to provide a structure. The basic purpose of corporate governance is कि जो organizations and corporations एक structure बनाएं जिसमें stockholders, directors और management, and these are all stakeholders of the company, can pursue most effectively the objectives of the corporation, which is going to be profit making, which is simply stating, which is going to be making more money. That means that governance is the prerogative of the board of directors, because असल में तो board of directors ही होते हैं जो कि management करते हैं. So I can't say कि जी corporate governance का जो काम है वो शेयर होल्डर्स का है, because वो शेयर होल्डर्स का नहीं है, because शेयर होल्डर्स तो सिर्फ शेयर्स खरीद लेते हैं और फिर वो क्या करते हैं, फिर वो बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स को चूज कर देते हैं so that they can handle the management of the company. So that basically means is कि जी बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स जो हैं उनकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है गवर्नेंस करना। जो कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस का कॉन्सेप्ट है वो जो काम है कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस वो बेसिकली शेयर होल्डर्स का नहीं है, वो बेसिकली बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स का है। नाउ विद रेफरेंस टू द बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स आपका जो मैनेजमेंट का स्ट्रक्चर होता है वो तो आप सब लोगों को पता है कि एक पिरामिड फॉर्मेट में होता है, whereby the base is the widest and as you start going on top of the pyramid तो आपका जो वो है वो कम होता जाता है, इट्स नॉट एज वाइड एज द बेस। वाई? बिकॉज नीचे की लेयर्स में आपके पास ज्यादा लोग होते हैं एंड यू स्टार्ट गोइंग अप द पिरामिड, आपकी मैनेजमेंट कम हो जाती है। लो लेवल मैनेजमेंट सबसे नीचे होगी, बहुत ज्यादा होगी, मिडिल लेवल मैनेजमेंट बीच में होगी और लो लेवल मैनेजमेंट से कम होगी, एंड टॉप लेवल मैनेजमेंट सबसे ऊपर होगी और वो एज कम्पेयर टू योर मिडिल मैनेजमेंट एंड द लोअर मैनेजमेंट सबसे कम होगी। And similarly, with respect to your management pyramid, your authority and your responsibility is going to go from top down. टॉप से नीचे आएगी और अकाउंटेबिलिटी जो है वो नीचे से ऊपर जाएगी। डेफिनेशंस क्या हैं अथॉरिटी की, रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी की और अकाउंटेबिलिटी की? यू वुड नीड टू ओपन अप योर मैनेजमेंट बुक और योर इंट्रोडक्शन टू बिजनेस बुक और इवन गूगल द टर्म्स एंड यू विल गेट टू नो एग्जैक्टली व्हाट दे आर, सो आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू गो इनटू डिटेल। With reference to the board of directors, उनका काम क्या होता है, what are they supposed to do? Basically, as I said earlier as well, they are responsible for the overall management of the corporation. They're responsible for managing the operations of the corporation on behalf of the shareholders. why do shareholders can't, or why can the shareholders not do this? Because the shareholders are in large numbers, one, because the shareholders are geographically dispersed, they are not, all of them are not in one place, and so that means कि इन दोनों shortcomings को देखते हुए आपके shareholders जो हैं वो आपके board of directors को choose करते हैं, and then the board of directors are the one जो कि डेली ऑपरेशंस को, कॉर्पोरेशंस के डेली ऑपरेशंस को देखते हैं. स्पेसिफिकली कौन से एक्टिविटीज वो करेंगे? दे आर द वंस हु फॉर्मुलेट स्ट्रेटजी, दे आर द वंस हु डू प्लानिंग, दे आर द वंस हु वुड डू स्ट्रेटेजिक प्लानिंग, दे आर द वंस हु वुड डू ऑल फंक्शंस ऑफ मैनेजमेंट, एंड मोर इम्पोर्टेंटली they are the ones who are answerable to shareholders, or they are the ones who are accountable to shareholders, right? So that is what the board of directors do. Now with reference to being answerable, क्योंकि बाकी सारी formulation of strategy, planning, management function, ये तो सब चीज़ें आसान है. With reference to the board of directors being answerable and being accountable to shareholders, यहाँ पर आपके board of directors की first fiduciary duty आती है. Now, which is the first principle of the fiduciary duty is that one having been entrusted with powers for another's benefit under an obligation to act honestly. So, what is expected of the board of directors as the first principle of their fiduciary duty is that since they are entrusted with powers on behalf of the shareholders, so they need to work in the benefits, or they need to work for the benefits of the shareholders as they are under an obligation to act honestly. अगर हम इसकी ट्रांसलेशन करें तो इसका सिंपली मतलब ये होगा कि शेयर होल्डर्स के बिहाफ पर आपके बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स काम कर रहे होते हैं, एंड इट इज़ an obligation for the it is an obligation या फर्ज है आपके बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स का कि बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स जो हैं वो शेयर होल्डर्स के बेनिफिट के लिए काम करें और ऑनेस्टली काम करें, फेयरली काम करें, जस्टली काम करें. सो दैट इज़ वन ऑफ द very first principles of that's one of the very first principles of the fiduciary duty of the board of directors. Again, आप ये पूछ सकते हैं कि जी ये तो कॉमन सेंस है, हम तो ये समझेंगे एक बंदा किसी दूसरे के लिए काम कर रहा होगा तो वो उसी के फायदे के लिए काम करेगा, उसी के बेनिफिट के लिए काम करेगा और ऑनेस्टली काम करेगा. बट मसला ये होता है कि इट्स नॉट दैट इजी. इट्स नॉट इजी फॉर द बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स टू always work in the benefits of the shareholders. It is not easy for the board of directors to be always honest with the work, because उनके लिए बहुत सारे एक्सटर्नल इन्फ्लुएंसेस होते हैं उनके ऊपर या बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स के ऊपर बहुत सारे एक्सटर्नल प्रेशर्स होते हैं. दैट एक्सटर्नल प्रेशर्स कैन बी इन द फॉर्म ऑफ इंस्टीट्यूशनल इन्वेस्टर्स. नाउ इंस्टीट्यूशनल इन्वेस्टर और इंडिविजुअल इन्वेस्टर में फ़र्क है. इंडिविजुअल इन्वेस्टर इज व्हेन आई एम बाइंग शेयर्स. इंस्टीट्यूशनल इन्वेस्टर इज जब एक इंस्टीट्यूशन या एक और बिजनेस जो है वो खरीदता है शेयर्स. ना जब मैं शेयर्स खरीदूंगी तो मैं लिमिटेड शेयर्स खरीदूंगी बिकॉज मेरी लिमिटेड इनकम है. लेकिन जब एक इंस्टीट्यूशन या एक बिजनेस शेयर्स खरीदता है उस केस में उनके पास बहुत सारी फाइनेंशियल रिसोर्सेज होती हैं, वो बहुत सारे शेयर्स खरीद सकते हैं. अगर वो बहुत सारे शेयर्स खरीदें और मेजॉरिटी शेयर्स खरीद लें तो दैट मीन्स कि उनका तो इंटरेस्ट मेजॉरिटी में चला गया और they would literally become majority shareholders of the company. उस केस में जो board of directors हैं they would be directly responsible to that particular institutional investor and they would be accountable to that particular institutional investor and they would have to listen to that particular institutional investor. So that is one of the pressures that the board of directors can feel. Similarly, अगर again institutional investor है और बहुत सारे shares हो जाते हैं तो hostile takeover भी हो सकता है. जिसके भी 51% share हुए तो उसके पास controlling shares होंगे and that particular institutional investor or a group of investors or one particular company can take over your company. Siमिलरली आपके जो बैंक्स और फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशंस होते हैं वो भी बहुत ज़्यादा प्रेशर एक्सर्ट करते हैं बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स पे. क्यों, कैसे, कहाँ? आपका जो कॉरपोरेशन है वो बैंक से या फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशन से जाकर लोन लेता है. जब वो लोन लेता है तो ऑटोमेटिकली बैंक्स के पास एक दे हैव अ कार्ड जिसके थ्रू वो आपके कॉरपोरेशंस को इन्फ्लुएंस कर सकते हैं, प्रेशराइज कर सकते हैं. एंड देन समटाइम्स यू आल्सो हैव शैडो डायरेक्टर्स वेयर बाय डायरेक्टर्स की फैमिली मेंबर्स, डायरेक्टर्स के रिलेटिव्स जो हैं वो कॉरपोरेशन का पैसा अपने ऊपर स्पेंड करते हैं या वो जो फैमिली मेंबर्स हैं वो डायरेक्टर्स की डिसीजन मेकिंग को इन्फ्लुएंस करते हैं एंड देन दे बिकम शैडो डायरेक्टर्स एज वेल. नाउ व्हाट वी आर गोइंग टू डू राइट नाउ इज फॉर योर I guess we can end our lecture right here and I guess we can be happy now because the lecture has ended. So here with shadow directors we're going to end our lecture number 4 and that's almost 1/3 of your chapter number 1. And we can start inshallah next lecture, which is lecture number 5, from this slide where I'm finishing off. So let's just have a quick recap before I say my goodbyes. What we're doing in this particular lecture is we're just having or discussing what corporations are. We've discussed how the corporations have evolved over time, and we've discussed various different characteristics of corporations, and then we've also talked about what is corporate governance and where do corporate governance fit in the overall perspective of a corporation. So we're going to end lecture number 4 here. Until I see you for lecture number 5, Allah Hafiz.